Tom had been running his bakery for over 50 years. To most, it was just another small, family-owned business nestled on a quiet street. But to those who knew him, it was something more. The scent of freshly baked bread, the soft hum of his radio playing old tunes, and the occasional chuckle from Tom as he greeted his customers with warmth, these were the things that made his bakery special. It wasn't much, but to Tom, it was everything. It was a cold winter evening when the letter arrived. The bakery had already closed for the day. Tom had cleaned up, wiped down the counters, and locked the door behind him. His routine as familiar as the back of his hand. He was about to turn in for the night when he noticed something strange on the doorstep. A plain, brown envelope. No name, no return address, just a faint glimmer of light reflecting off the surface. Curious, he bent down and picked it up. He studied the envelope for a moment before tearing it open. Inside, there was a single piece of paper, with a few hastily scrawled words. "You've done a good thing, but be careful. Not everyone values kindness." Tom's heart skipped a beat. The handwriting was unfamiliar, and there was no clue as to who might have sent it. The words felt cryptic, almost threatening. Yet, Tom couldn't help but feel a strange sense of validation. It was as though someone had seen what he was doing, noticed the little acts of kindness he offered, even if he never asked for recognition. But who would feel the need to warn him? The more he thought about it, the more he felt uneasy. Tom had always believed in the power of small, simple acts, offering free bread to a struggling family, lending a hand to an elderly neighbor, sharing a kind word with anyone who walked through his door. These acts were his way of giving back, of spreading a little light in a world that often seemed so dark. But now, someone was watching, someone knew what he was doing, and that thought unsettled him. He folded the letter and tucked it in his pocket, making a mental note to be cautious. There was something about it that didn't sit right with him, like a shadow lurking just out of sight. The next morning, Tom opened the bakery just like any other day. The sun was still low in the sky, casting a soft golden light across the small town. He could hear the familiar sounds of early risers, cars starting, children laughing, the distant hum of a nearby truck making its deliveries. It was peaceful, comforting, and it made Tom feel grounded. He couldn't shake the unsettling feeling from the previous night, but he didn't want to dwell on it too much. After all, it was just a letter. His first customer of the day was a young man he didn't recognize. The man entered with a kind of hurried energy, his face partially hidden beneath the collar of his coat. He was tall, maybe in his early 20s, with short, dark hair and a look that suggested he hadn't slept much. "Good morning," Tom greeted him cheerfully, trying to break the man's tense aura. "What can I get for you today?" The man's gaze flicked around the room, pausing briefly on the bread before meeting Tom's eyes. "A loaf of your best, please," he said, his voice soft but strained. Tom smiled and began wrapping up a loaf of freshly baked sourdough. He noticed the man's hands shaking slightly, a subtle sign of nervousness or distress. "Anything else for you?" Tom asked, trying to draw him out of his shell. The man hesitated, glancing toward the door as if contemplating leaving. Then, almost as though he had made a decision, he spoke again, his voice quieter this time. "Actually, there's something I wanted to ask you, something I've been meaning to do for a while." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Of course, what's on your mind?" The man took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been following your work for a while. I've seen the way you interact with people, helping them, offering kindness when they need it most. I don't know how to explain it, but it's made me think about my own life, about what I've been doing." He paused, clearly searching for the right words. "It's strange, but I feel like I owe you something. Or, at least, I need to say thank you." Tom blinked, caught off guard. "I don't do what I do for recognition," he said gently, "but I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot." The man seemed to relax a little at Tom's response. "I know. I just thought you should know. I was planning to do something bad, but then I saw you, and I saw how your kindness affects people. It made me think twice." Tom's heart sank. He felt a mixture of concern and confusion. "What do you mean, something bad?" he asked, his voice more serious now. The man looked down at his shoes, then back up at Tom. "I was planning to rob this bakery," he admitted, almost sheepishly. "I've been struggling, and I thought if I could just get some money, I could turn things around. But when I walked in here today, I saw you, and I saw the way you care for people, and I realized, maybe there's another way. Maybe kindness can be the answer." Tom was stunned into silence. He wasn't sure what to say. The young man's words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. He had been on the brink of making a terrible choice, But something about Tom's actions, small, seemingly insignificant gestures, had changed his mind. "Thank you," the young man said, his voice cracking slightly. "Thank you for being a reminder that there's still good in the world." Tom was moved, deeply so. "I'm just doing what I can," he replied, his voice filled with sincerity. "And you're welcome. But remember, you don't have to go through life alone. There's always help out there if you ask for it." The man nodded, his eyes welling up with emotion. "I won't forget this," he said quietly before turning to leave, the bakery door closing softly behind him. As the door clicked shut, Tom stood still, trying to process what had just happened. He had been a witness to something extraordinary, a life that could have gone down a much darker path had it not been for a small act of kindness. The ripple effect of such moments was beyond measure, and Tom realized that he couldn't stop now. He had to keep going, even if the road ahead wasn't always clear. But the letter from the night before still lingered in his mind, and somehow, deep down, Tom knew this was only the beginning. As the days passed, Tom couldn't shake the memory of the young man's visit. The encounter had left a lasting impression on him, and the weight of it seemed to sit heavily on his chest. The bakery was the same, flour-dusted countertops, the comforting smell of fresh bread in the air, but Tom felt a quiet shift inside of him. He'd always believed in kindness, but seeing its real, raw impact made him question whether he was doing enough. He couldn't stop thinking about the young man's words. "I was planning to rob this bakery, but I saw you, and I realized there's another way." It was as though a door had opened for him, a window into a world where kindness wasn't just a gesture, but a lifeline. Tom decided to make a change. He began thinking more about how he could expand his reach, how he could help not just through his bakery, but through his own actions. What if he could help those who were struggling in a deeper, more profound way? What if kindness wasn't just something he offered through a loaf of bread, but something that could change lives? He started small. At first, it was simple, offering a free loaf of bread to someone who couldn't afford it, taking the time to listen to a customer who seemed like they needed a friendly ear. But slowly, the small acts began to add up, and Tom started seeing the difference they made. People came into the bakery with lighter hearts, leaving with a renewed sense of hope. One afternoon, a woman came in with her 2 children. Her face was drawn, weary from the weight of something unseen. She had a quiet sadness about her, a heaviness that Tom recognized. As she placed her order, Tom couldn't help but notice the way her hands trembled, the subtle signs of someone fighting their own battles. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Tom asked gently, not wanting to pry but feeling compelled to ask. The woman hesitated, looking up at Tom, surprised by his concern. She nodded but didn't speak. It was enough for Tom to know that something was off. He quickly wrapped up her order, but before she left, he added something extra, a loaf of his special cinnamon bread, a treat he rarely made but knew would bring comfort to anyone who tasted it. When she saw the extra loaf, her eyes widened in surprise. "I didn't order this," she said, glancing back at Tom. "It's on the house," he replied with a warm smile. "Sometimes, we all need a little something extra. Please, enjoy." The woman seemed taken aback by his kindness. She looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing her words. Finally, she smiled, though it was faint. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice breaking slightly. Tom watched her leave with her children, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had done something truly meaningful. It wasn't just about bread or a simple gesture, it was about offering someone hope when they felt like they had none. The ripple effects continued. Over the next few weeks, more and more people came into the bakery, not just for bread, but for something intangible, something beyond the flour and yeast. Tom's reputation grew, and so did his sense of purpose. But even as he gave more of himself to others, he couldn't escape the nagging feeling that he was missing something, that there was still more to his story. And then, one day, as Tom was closing up the bakery, the door opened with a soft chime. He looked up, expecting to see a late customer, but instead, standing in the doorway, was the young man from a few weeks earlier, the one who had almost robbed the bakery. The man was different now. His posture was straighter, his eyes less haunted. He smiled as soon as he saw Tom, a genuine smile that seemed to light up his whole face. "I've been looking for you," the man said, his voice full of gratitude. Tom raised an eyebrow, wondering what this encounter would bring. "Looking for me? I'm just a baker." The man shook his head, stepping further into the bakery. "No, Tom, you're not just a baker. You're someone who made me believe there's a way out, a way to be better. I've been getting help, working on my life, and it's all because of that moment in here." When you showed me kindness, you gave me hope when I didn't think I had any left. Tom felt his heart swell with a mixture of surprise and humility. I'm glad to hear that, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The man reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I want to repay you, he said, his voice shaky but sincere. I don't have much, but I'd like to give you something, to show my gratitude. Tom shook his head. No need for that. You've already given me more than I could ever ask for. The man hesitated, then smiled. I just wanted to say thank you, for everything. As the man left the bakery, Tom stood there for a moment, overwhelmed by the power of his own actions. He had changed one person's life, and in doing so, had found something in himself that he hadn't known was missing. The ripple effect of kindness had started to spread further than Tom had ever imagined, and yet, he knew that the journey was far from over. There were more lives to touch, more hearts to heal, and Tom was ready. Tom's life had changed in ways he never could have anticipated. The simple act of kindness he'd shown to a troubled young man had sparked something much larger than he could have ever imagined. The bakery, once a quiet corner of the town, had become a beacon, a place where people came not just for bread, but for hope. As the weeks turned into months, Tom's small acts of kindness began to create a ripple effect that spread throughout the community. Word of his generosity had traveled quickly, and soon, people were coming into his bakery with stories of their own. Some were struggling with difficult personal battles. Others just needed a smile or a moment of connection. Whatever the case, Tom found himself not just baking bread, but listening, offering advice, and sometimes, just being there for someone who needed to be seen. One day, a woman in her 30s walked into the bakery, a look of hesitation in her eyes. She seemed unsure of what to order, so Tom stepped forward, offering a warm smile. Can I help you decide? The woman glanced up at him, and Tom could see the uncertainty in her eyes. I'm not sure, she said softly. I'm new to the area, and I've just been feeling lost, like I don't belong. Tom's heart went out to her. He could hear the loneliness in her voice, the quiet longing for something to anchor her in a world that felt overwhelming. I understand, he said gently, but you're not alone. You've come to the right place. She looked at him, puzzled. Really? Absolutely, Tom said with a smile. I believe that kindness has a way of bringing people together. You've just walked into a place where people care about one another. Sometimes, that's all we need to feel at home. The woman's eyes softened, and she smiled faintly. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. Tom's words weren't meant to be profound, but to her, they were a lifeline. She didn't need a grand gesture or a solution to her problems. She just needed someone who cared enough to listen. Tom handed her a loaf of fresh, warm bread, one of his signature baguettes, and wrapped it with care. This one's on the house, he said. Consider it a small token of welcome. The woman was taken aback. You don't have to do that, she said, clearly moved by his generosity. Sometimes it's the small things that make the biggest difference, Tom replied, his voice full of warmth. As she left the bakery, a new lightness in her step, Tom couldn't help but feel that same surge of fulfillment. The more he gave, the more he realized that the act of kindness wasn't just about helping others, it was about growing with them, sharing in their journeys, and seeing the world through their eyes. But what Tom didn't expect was the impact this had on the rest of the town. The people who came into his bakery began to spread the message of kindness. It wasn't just about Tom anymore, it was about everyone. One by one, they started to pay it forward, offering a helping hand, a kind word, or a simple gesture that could turn someone's day around. One afternoon, a teenager named Mia walked into the bakery. She was carrying a large stack of flyers, her face tired and drawn. She had been volunteering at a local shelter for months, but lately, the work had begun to feel like an uphill battle. As she stood at the counter, Tom could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Long day? He asked, already reaching for a fresh loaf of bread. Mia nodded. You could say that, she said with a slight smile. I've been handing out flyers for a charity event, but it feels like no one's paying attention. Sometimes, I wonder if it's all worth it. Tom paused for a moment, considering her words. He could tell she was struggling, not just with the work, but with a deeper sense of doubt about her purpose. You know, he said softly, it's not always about the immediate results. Sometimes the seeds we plant don't show up right away, but they're growing in ways we can't see. Mia looked at him, curiosity in her eyes. What do you mean? I mean that the good we do doesn't always get noticed right away, but that doesn't mean it's not making an impact. Every act of kindness, every bit of love we give, ripples out in ways we can't always measure. Trust me, the work you're doing matters. It's changing lives, even if you don't see it right now. Mia was quiet for a long moment, absorbing his words. Then she gave a small, grateful smile. Thanks, Tom. I needed to hear that. He handed her the loaf of bread, wrapped in bright paper. Take this, on the house, for when you need a little extra energy. Mia's eyes brightened as she took the bread. Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me. And as she left the bakery, Tom couldn't help but feel proud. The town was changing, slowly, but surely. The ripple effect of kindness was gaining momentum, and he had no intention of stopping anytime soon. The next morning, Tom opened his bakery as usual, but as he walked behind the counter, he found something unexpected, a note, left on the counter. It was from the young man who had once considered robbing the bakery. The note read, I just wanted to let you know that I've been clean for 3 months now. I'm working a steady job and rebuilding my life. I think of that moment in your bakery every day, and it's kept me going. Thank you, Tom, for showing me a better way. As Tom read the note, his heart swelled with pride. He had touched one life, and that life had gone on to touch others. His small act of kindness had set off a chain reaction, one that had the power to change the world. The ripple effect was real, and it was only just beginning. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends. To subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.